The Binding of Isaac. It's going to be the next game that we're adding to our long list of notable indie games. It's one that I've been aware of for quite a long time, having watched a lot of it on YouTube years ago before even my fucking stupid laptop could barely run it, and then I picked up the older version, which has been out for quite a while, and then they did rewrite, the developer rewrote the entire game. Different code, I can't remember exactly what the difference is, but it gives it a slightly different aesthetic and means, as far as I'm aware, the game can't be broken to the same extent that the first game could. I don't mean that in a bad way. Basically, in the first game, if you got the right combination of items, you could really fuck shit up. Whereas in this one, that still happened. To be honest, I'm not sure. That might still exist out there. This game is basically a roguelike, for want of a better word, and what that means is each run is a separate run which you start afresh going through, and through each of these runs it's like a different instance, and when you die, you start a new run fresh again, none of the items carrying over or anything like that. It's set within quite a grim aesthetic. A lot of it's focused around sort of you're a small child that's been locked in the basement. To be honest, I didn't pay too much, like the aesthetic seems cohesive overall, but I didn't pay too much attention to it because it isn't something that particularly talks to me. I never found it to have humour that I particularly enjoyed. It's a lot of toilet humour, things like that. But that doesn't mean that it's bad. You know, with it being so cohesive and working throughout, they weren't the parts of the game that I really wanted to focus on, and where I personally found enjoyment. I found enjoyment in the actual mechanics of the game. Basically, each time you start again with a new character, you start on the top floor of the basement and go down several levels. Each floor will have a few things guaranteed in it. It will have an item shop, where you can spend coins earned throughout the run, and it will have a treasure room, where you will get new items to sort of increase your character's stats and things like that. At the end of each floor there will also be a boss. There are also, you know, different things that can happen on the floor, like sometimes you know, like mutations, so some floors will be you won't be able to see the map as well, things like that. And this leads you to, well, yeah, I suppose I should talk about the combat really, and which is it's a top-down twin stick shooter, but more in the vein of sort of the original Zelda. There seems to be a lot of similarities to that, and to be honest, I think you can draw a line out of what the original Zelda was, and this is one of the potential offshoots that could have happened from that original game, which obviously wasn't the case until now, but it is cool to see those sort of ideas developed on further. So yeah, after you finish each floor, you go down further and further, and after fighting boss after boss, and the main antagonist in the game is your mother. So the last floor will be fighting Mum, and then after that you have beat the game. There are further optional end game bosses that you can unlock by playing the game further, but I'll move on to that in a second. One of the main pulls for me with this game were the items. As I say, you get an item room on every floor, but you also do get an item at the end of every boss, and some of them will just change your stats a little bit, you know, give you a bit more damage, speed, luck, things like that. But other items completely change how this game plays. You will go from, you know, being able to shoot just normal, the main attack is called tears, just shooting normal tears, to shooting lasers from your mouth, to, yeah, just completely changing the fucking game, which is, it's part of the fun of this game. And along with the fact that you can unlock different characters to do each run through, which each character will have different stats and some of them will be completely different in their own, it does feel like each game you play of this is completely different, because not only are you getting these combination of items that change the game on top of a character that will play slightly differently and have different benefits and negatives, it feels like each time you're going down you are gaining a bit more knowledge, a bit more idea of what each of these items would do, what they'll do in tandem or in combinations, and how to best approach the actual game itself. With all of these different items, weapons and such, you obviously are encountering different enemies, and to me the enemy AI was always fairly straightforward, but that was only after learning it. And I think a lot can be said in this game about the idea of progression through, you know, sort of learning and progression through failure. So each time you fail, you will learn that perhaps that enemy has a different attack pattern, perhaps that boss moves in a certain way or is weak to a certain, you know, movement pattern yourself and trying to get around it. And that gives you a lot of scope to sort of enjoy each run, even though you may have potentially failed it. The actual progression of the game, apart from the main story, as some roguelikes do have these days, is done through various sort of stipulations that you have to achieve. So if you kill certain bosses the amount of times, then you'll unlock another item that could potentially show up. I forgot to say, by the way, I think there's about 300 odd items, each with different rarities of showing up. But yeah, if you defeat certain bosses, you'll get new items. If you there's a section in the main menu called challenges, and these will again add further stipulations to your game, meaning that you have to play it in a different way each time. But these will again give you different items, and which may affect how you play the game. This progression means that certain things are locked off to you initially, and it's only as you play the game more and more do you start to increase the scope of what you can do and different potential combinations of things. But as I say, with each run being a lesson and learning, you'll pick up every item initially, but as you progress through and play more and more, you will slowly learn that, oh no, this item with this item is actually a weaker combination and could be very detrimental to the run altogether. And it's this sense of learning that I really drew into, and part of the game that I really enjoyed. So, you know, each run I would pick up more knowledge to help me further down the line, and actually, you know, sort of later game bosses I found easier once progressing more through it. And I think the idea of locking off some of the content initially and having it a lot more simplistic, you know, some of the bosses are locked off, not just the items, is actually a very intelligent design, because this game can be very overwhelming initially, and meaning that you don't have all of the random crazy things going on, but you still have access to a lot of them, means that you can learn the game. And you know, as talking earlier, knowledge is powerful in this. It's such as if you don't take red heart, you have two different types of hearts. You have spirit hearts, which are temporary hearts, so temporary health. Once it's lost, it's lost. And you have red hearts, which are containers similar to the original Zelda, and you can fill these up as you go through the game. And if you don't take red heart damage at all in this game, it means that you can, at the end, not at all in the game, but by the end, on each floor, it means that you can potentially get a deal with the devil. And I probably should say right now that a lot of this game is risk-reward. So this deal with the devil is, you know, after you finish the boss, not taking any red heart damage, you'll go in and you'll have maybe a couple of items or an item for you, but you have to buy it off him with heart containers. So if you've only got a couple of heart containers, it might be a real risk reward, because you know that item does a lot of damage, it's going to really help your run. And to be honest, often this game it is better to take the more damaging items. But yeah, it has that risk reward factor. There's gambling machines in the game, and one of them will take red heart bits off you, not full containers, just bits, and yeah, basically deal you damage, and you can potentially get coins. And this goes back to the knowledge idea, because if you know that you can do that relatively successfully, so you know you've got 4 or 5 red hearts on the map and you keep using this machine, you know that you can potentially get a heart container upgrade from the machine, and also more money as well, which means you can go to the shop, buy more items, and have more potential capability. So this allows you to constantly feel like you're getting better. But I would argue that once you put a certain amount of time into it, and to be honest, I did watch a lot of videos on YouTube years ago when the first Isaac came out, so I probably had more knowledge going into this than most would. But once you sort of know the parameters to operate in, so you know if you've got an arcade which will have various gambling machines on the floor, you know that you can use it in a certain way to, so if basically you gamble to get pieces of health, which you then use to get more money, which means you can kind of go on quite a lot, gaining more and more offshoot items that are potentially empowering you. You know when you can do more of these risk reward things. And I think once you do develop these sort of parameters, the game does lessen in interest, because you sort of know how to do it, you know how to complete it. But that doesn't mean to negate from the fact that progress getting up to that stage is highly enjoyable, and you do just keep wanting to play a couple of rounds. This game for me was okay, I'll get home from work, I'll play this game for half an hour, 40 minutes, which is about what a run takes. I'd play it for one life before doing anything else, and that meant I would just sit down, play this game, and sort of relax a bit, because the first few floors are fairly easy. Especially after you've done them a few times, and so that would be me relaxing and sort of building up into harder and harder stuff. So the combination of this, the nature of people wanting to go back in and see what the game offers, and also once you sort of build up each of these characters differently, each run it can be hugely different, so it can feel like you're having to relearn your playstyle all the time, but once you obviously know the parameters, it does become a lot easier. But the combination of all these things make it like quite a highly enjoyable game to play, and it's something I recommend if people are looking at a game that they just want to sink half an hour, 40 minutes here and there into it. This game is great for that. For me, long sessions of sitting down and playing it aren't the most enjoyable, but just pop it in, having a game a day. This game succeeds in that, and it succeeds mechanically and generally anyway, so yeah, if you're looking for that sort of game, go out and buy it. Right, that'll be us for today. Bye.